three professionals that are here to talk about their careers and give you some insight into the world of the one world where you can play God. Why can you play God in this world? Because it's the only medium that you can recreate an image and make it do what you want and then put it out into the world. How amazing is that? Right? And then people will actually pay you for it. So let's welcome our guests and we'll get started. Remember, at the end there's going to be questions and answers.
You guys go first.
Oh, okay. I'll do it shorter this time. How many people work at KBEV in some form or part of it? Anybody? Okay, one, two, cool. So, I said this last time, you're very fortunate. This is the coolest kind of facility to have. I work in the television station business. I work for a company that owns like 180 TV stations. And so and I remember going to my first TV station 30 years ago and walking in, it was like, just that part there with a camera. And it used to be it used to be a gas station before it became a television station. So this is a very fortunate thing, and this is actually the thing that got me connected to TV in the first place. My name is Adam, by the way. I grew up in New York City. I got exposed to TV at a very early age. My first experience, besides watching it often, was going and being in the audience of a local TV show that was produced at a TV station, very much like this. Though maybe it was this size, the studio, though it seemed bigger because I was smaller, I guess. And it was called Wonderama. It was a kid's show, and it was produced in New York, and it was on every Saturday. And what I liked about it was not actually being in the audience of a TV show. I liked actually seeing what was going on during the commercial breaks. A year ago, I convinced my daughter, who goes to the school here, her name is Sadie Ware, and I have a son named Mason Ware, who goes to the school here as well, that to go to The Voice with me. They didn't want to go. I wanted to go. I didn't want to go alone. It was kind of pathetic. And what I thought was the coolest thing about going to a taping of The Voice was the performances were cool, but what I found more cool what was going on around it all. That's how I felt when I was 8 years old. That's how I felt when I turned 53. The same sort of thing was there. That then led me to wanting to be a lawyer. So I had some path that I was going to become a lawyer. I was interested in government. I did mock trials. I went to model UNs. I did all this types of stuff that was on a career for political science. Becoming a lawyer is generally that path after that. And I ended up leaving school early. As a result of that, I found myself getting into media again. And I started to sell TV commercials that ran on TV stations. And then the second thing I did was I worked for the Fox Network when the Fox Network first started. I did that for 7 years, so I was part of building something. Did that again for another company that's become a company called Interactive Corp. After that, I worked for a company called UPN, which is gone now, but it's now the CW, I guess. And then from there, I went and did a bunch of different other things, and now I work at a company that owns TV stations all over the country. And my primary business at that company is they also own television networks and they have streaming services. My focus is on the streaming side. I'm very into building new sort of businesses. That's sort of been my path. So from being hooked on a very early age just on being around creation of stuff, the behind the scenes element of it, to having to pivot, like got left school too early or left school when it was time for me to leave school, and then pivoted to all of a sudden doing things, and through that all, what has kept me involved in this and into this is what I sort of said the last time, which is, one word for me is passion, right? I have been passionate about what I do, which is why I probably like building things more than maintaining things. I like creating things. I'm not creative, or I can create a TV show, right? Like, don't get me to write at all. But I like creating businesses, and I like creating businesses that are about creative things. So right now I run a company called Stir, which is a new streaming service. It's like Pluto, if you've heard of Pluto. And then I also run a company that does all the streaming for Tennis Channel, and then also the international part of Tennis Channel as well. That's it.
Good morning, my name is Jordan Cranis, and I am a television writer and producer. Currently I do mostly reality, non-scripted type shows. Big Brother is one of them. It's sort of a reality show on CBS where a bunch of people move into a house and ridiculousness ensues. But I've also done a lot of other kinds of shows like American Ninja Warrior, which is an obstacle course show, and I've done Hell's Kitchen, which is a cooking show, and Kitchen Nightmares, which is a restaurant makeover show. So I've done a lot of kinds of reality shows. I started, however, in doing sports documentaries, and the way that I got into television, I went to college and I got a degree in broadcasting and a degree in English, and I was not fortunate enough to have a passion at that moment. I had no particular passion to be a television producer or writer. But I was very fortunate because I had an opportunity when I moved back from college, when I moved back to New York with my family. My family happened to have some friends, one of whom, family friend who worked in television, and he was working at a yet to be launched new cable TV channel called Classic Sports Network, which was, I don't know if you guys know what Nick at Night is, but Nick at Night basically shows old TV shows that you might remember from your youth, and it's just kind of like a nostalgia thing. Well, that's what Classic Sports Network was. We would show old Muhammad Ali fights or old baseball games or, which was great for me because while I didn't necessarily have a passion for television in the moment, I did have a passion for sports. So I was fortunate to get this job. And what I discovered while I was there, I really worked my ass off, but what I discovered while I was there was that what I do love is telling stories. And really, that's what my job is to this day. It doesn't matter what TV show that I'm working on. Essentially, I'm telling a story, which I am passionate about because I am a firm believer that every single one of us three, all of you out there, all of you have a story that could be told in a fascinating way. And that's what I love to do. I like to find the interesting thing about somebody or an event or about a thing, whatever it is, and tell the story of that person or event or thing. And so I discovered my passion through doing this job of television. I started out doing, like I said, documentaries, mostly sports-related documentaries. I was very fortunate. I got to meet a lot of my sports heroes through doing that job, which was really cool. I'm happy to be a big New York Knicks fan.
Sorry.
I know it's difficult
It's a burden.
these days, but what my job allowed me to do, I did an entire documentary series about the greatest New York Knicks of all time, which to me was like, oh my God, I get to sit down with Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley and John Starks and all. It was just really cool, and I had an opportunity to tell their stories. And again, that's what I love to do. Since that was when I was living in New York, when I came out here, they didn't really seem to have documentaries. Non-scripted TV is a little bit similar because you're telling regular people's stories, whether it's a competition show or a cooking show, whatever it is, you're basically telling stories. And so I found my passion, fortunately, a little bit after the fact, and that is telling stories, and that's what I do every single day. Every one of you has a story, and we could tell your story in a compelling and fun and interesting way. I guarantee it. So that's what I do. I write and produce TV shows and tell stories.
I am Sarah Mazes, and I am Vice President of Television at the Jim Henson Company. A lot of people know Jim Henson for the Muppets. Does anyone know what the Muppets are? Anyone know what the Muppets are? Okay. So, just checking it. I've always been a massive television fanatic, a huge consumer of television, to the point where I have a story my mom tells about how she put me down in front of static, which is something you guys never see. because there's always something on television. But back when I was growing up, as I'm 53, like back when television was like, you know, these little square boxes, television only ran for certain hours a day. Static was what happened when the TV was not on, and it literally was just static on the screen. And I would say, I'm like, why would you do that? My mom's like, you didn't have to watch. I'm like, okay, well, fair enough. And so I grew up, I was TV obsessed, and I never really loved to read. I didn't love to write. And it's to me, it's very funny that I ended up in television. I'm always like, I never felt so bad raising my kids. I have 2 kids here who are juniors. My oldest is graduated from here and went to Maryland. And I would never really felt so bad about them watching television, because I was like, I did it, and that turned out just fine. But I started out my career at the William Morris Agency in New York as an agent. I didn't start as an agent. I started as an assistant, worked my way up. And I was in the publishing side of William Morris. So I was a literary agent. Literary agent means 2 different things. One, out here in LA, it means somebody who represents people who do screenplays for film and television. And in New York, it means publishing. So I was on the publishing side and always wanted to be on the creative side. There was just something about it. I always wanted to be making television or telling stories. And I had an opportunity to move out to Los Angeles to run development for a Canadian animation studio. And I took it. And it was my opportunity to make a big move to come out to Los Angeles, and my husband at the time and I moved out, and I went on to work for this Canadian Nelvana doing, I don't even know, I'm not even going to name the shows because it doesn't matter, but worked at Nelvana and went on to work for the people who created Ren and Stimpy, and now am sorry, my coffee is not kicked in enough yet this morning, and I'm so thrown off from the time change. I'm like, shouldn't I still be sleeping? But apparently I'm not. So I took some time off to go do comedy and perform and learn sort of that part of the business and sort of really kind of hone my writing. And so for a long time I was doing stand-up comedy, I was doing improv, I was writing sketch comedy weekly for a comedy theater in Hollywood. And about 5 years ago, after my kids got a little bit older, I decided I wanted to be reinserted into the Matrix, and I got a job at Jim Henson and another job at Amazon Studios, and I was consulting and producing and running shows for them, overseeing shows for them, and then I got a full-time job at Henson, and I'm there now, and we are, the sort of shows that we're doing, Dark Crystal which is on Netflix at the moment. We do everything from prime time to preschool. We have, obviously the Muppets we were the creators of the Muppets, but they're owned by Disney now, and,
Really?
anyway, yeah, oh yeah, they're owned by Disney now, so we don't own them anymore. We still own Fraggle Rock though.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I'm sorry, this is like my brain is, I usually do the writing thing upstairs because I'm also an author, and my brain is, my entire morning has been spent doing that whole writing thing, so I'm taking a shift, so I'm sorry, my brain's not functioning right now. But anyway, so I'm at Jim Henson, and I oversee production and development. They're 2 very different pieces of the show creation process, but it is my job to make sure to oversee everything Henson takes on, from pitch, when somebody comes into us, wants to sell it, to what we take on, to creating a pitch package that we can take out to networks, to selling the show, to then getting us to green light, to then getting through our entire production order, delivering the show, and hopefully watching it do well. So.
Questions?
Oh, good questions I can ask.
This might be a weird question, but
There are no weird questions.
you said you were at WMA in New York.
Yeah.
I know it transferred to WME because of the Endeavor.
Yes. I
merger.
aged myself with that. Good catch.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she must be really old. It
No,
hasn't been that since it was written in stone.
But my dad works at WME right now. Do you know Danny Greenberg by chance?
I don't. I don't, but I didn't know a lot of the people in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And this was
Oh,
about
yeah.
25 years ago, so
Okay.
it was a long time ago.
Okay. I think it was at UTA at the time. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. I
Maybe.
know.
I don't
But
yeah.
in New York, we're very insulated. We were very insulated. So when I moved out here to LA, I wasn't in the LA office at all.
Okay, got it. I was just wondering. Yeah.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
That's a fun job.
I know.
You know?
There you go.
No.
There are no weird questions.
No, feel free to ask anything.
Literally anything.
Go ahead.
So I have a question for you.
For
So-
me, or?
Yeah, for you.
Okay.
So you said that you were on Hell's Kitchen, right?
Yes.
So how many times do you hear Gordon Ramsay curse all the time?
Ooh, he curses up a storm. But I will tell you something about Gordon Ramsay. So for those of you who don't know who Gordon Ramsay is, he's like he's a world-renowned chef. He's actually a
I
phenomenal
love
actual
him.
chef.
Love him.
But he is also he's got like 9 television shows. It's kind of amazing. And one of the show that I worked on is called Hell's Kitchen. One of them, I did another show called Kitchen Nightmares, which was his also. But on Hell's Kitchen, basically, it's a cooking competition show, and it is really, the purpose of it is to watch Gordon Ramsay yell at people. And my God, is he good at yelling at people. And one of the most professional people that I've ever worked with, and I say that because in the mornings, we could be in the control room or something, and he might come in and bring some donuts and say, "Good morning, everybody, and how you doing?" And listen, he is a extraordinarily wealthy guy, and he's a star, and so I would never say that we were friends, but he knew what I and the other producers were doing, and why we were there. We were there to help him make this TV show, and he was unbelievably respectful. And not someone who was cursing up a storm for no reason. What was incredible about him was we could say, okay, well, this person just dropped a scallop on, we could be in his ear and we were watching somebody cook something and they drop a scallop on the floor. Whether he saw it or not, we could say, hey, Cindy dropped a scallop on the floor, and he would be over there in a heartbeat and in her face and just ripping into her. And to the point where a lot of talent that I will work with, and I do a lot of that. So I do a lot of, for example, I used to do a show called American Ninja Warrior, and there are 2 hosts, Matt Eisman and Akbar Bajamionoa. My job for them was to write their scripts, write what they're telling to the camera, but then also while the event is happening, I have to feed them information, and they take that information and then share it with the world. And they were both phenomenal at that. Matt Eisman in particular was really, really good at taking the information I gave him and translating it for the public so that it felt like a live sporting event and all of that. What's incredible about Gordon Ramsay is you didn't have to tell him a thing. You could just say Cindy dropped a scallop on the floor and he was off to the races. And he could do it. But it's all a persona. Listen, he is passionate about cooking, and he doesn't want you dropping a scallop. So that part of it is real, but he knows that we're doing this for television. And so go off on Cindy for a while.
So there's 2 versions of the show, right? There's the bleeped version, and there's the non-bleeped version. So the bleeped version has a lot of bleeps in it, right? Easily, if it's a 22-minute show, or is it an hour?
It's
Yeah.
a 43-minute
43-minute show. There's 43 minutes times 3, 4 bleeps, so 130 bleeps in one show, right? Because he likes using the F word a lot. So the service that I run is called Stir, and we have the show, Hell's Kitchen, and we also have Kitchen Nightmares, and we actually have a channel for it. So it's just binging on Hell's Kitchen episodes, something like that. And I thought it was the one that was the bleeped episodes. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I turn it on in my office, and I'm watching it, and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, wait, what do we have? And it was the unbleeped version. And I kind of liked it better, right? And so in streaming, you can sort of get away with that. Whereas if you're in broadcast TV, you really can't. If you're in cable TV, you could, maybe, depends. But in streaming, you can get away with it. And so that's what we run. We sort of market it that way. right? We sort of say these are the unbleeped episodes of Gordon Ramsay and Kitchen Nightmare, right? And there's an angle there. And I think what makes that show really interesting is that it's authentic, right? Even though he's clearly understands how to play the camera and clearly understands structure, it comes across as real.
Oh, he's passionate
Right.
about it. There's no question about it. And what's beautiful about it is that there are very few people that I've ever come across across on planet Earth who deliver an insult the way Gordon Ramsay delivers an insult. It's pretty great. But again, not really who he is, if that's what you were asking.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So what is the starting point of creating a film or a show, and how would you get it, like, rolling? Like, how would you get it, how would you get people to watch it?
It's a long process. I will tell you, so I do development also. In fact, right now I'm doing development at NBC until the next Big Brother season starts. And so the process for it is, first of all, you have to have an idea for a show. You have to have a concept for a show that you think would be interesting. And there are many, many phases that come after that. First, you would have to develop, well, this is the concept of the show, but what's actually going to happen in the show? And you have to develop that yourself, or maybe you find a partner with whom you're going to work with at the very beginning stages. The next phase is once you feel like you have a really good idea for a show that's been thought out and constructed in your mind, you put it on paper, and then you have to try to get it in front of the people who actually buy TV shows. And that is a really difficult thing to do. Because it's very hard, it's difficult for, it's very hard, for example, for someone to say, hey, I've got it, if you have no track record, if you've never done it before, it would be very difficult for you to call up NBC and say, hey, I got a great idea for a TV show. Let me come in and tell you about it. So you have to find people who have connections in that world. So that would be the next phase of it. And then the next phase is honing that idea for a show into a sellable idea. It's called, you have to go pitch the idea to a production company or a network. And oftentimes you'll have to shoot a little version of the show.
We call them a sizzle.
A sizzle reel, which is a
Sizzle.
4 or 5 minute version of what you're imagining the bigger show could be, and get that in front of people. And then it's got to get bought, and then it's got to go through the various stages of whoever buys it. They're going to have their ideas of what the show should be, which don't always connect with your idea of what the show should be. But, ideally, eventually you come to a place where you've agreed upon, okay, this is what the show is, and these are the people that are going to be in the show, and this will be the format of the show. So it's a long, long process. It gets a lot easier to do it once you've done it. It's just like anything else, I think, in this world, especially for young people like you. People who want to hire you with experience. But how do you get experience if you've never been hired before? It's similar in that way when you're pitching a TV show. You may have the greatest idea in the world, but it's going to be hard for people to trust it if you don't have a track record of having made TV shows before. So it's really about, you've got to believe in the idea, you've got to put down the idea on paper, and you've got to then get it into the hands of people who have those kind of connections.
We had a show, there was a guy he used to own a company that produces Survivor, maybe Big Brother, is that Endemol?
Yes.
Yeah, and Big Brother, and he was the first sort of recent memory to produce all these great reality shows, and they were all produced in Amsterdam first.
Mm-hmm.
And they sort of honed it in Amsterdam, and then they would sell what they call a format, the format of that show, to different countries. So The Voice, for instance, is all over the world, right? And that's a format, and they sell that to different countries to be produced. American Idol, there's different idols all around the country, all around the world. So Survivor was huge, and they came into us through, and he's a huge producer, and he had an agent at William Morris, and they came into the company I was at, and pitched us the next idea. So we were like, Survivor, cool, we want the next Survivor. And this idea was something called Chains of Love. And basically it was a dating show where it was like The Bachelor, but everybody was chained together, right? And we're like, oh my God, that's great. And he was pitching us, right? And he was great at pitching us. He was, and also he had produced Survivor, right? And so it was like, oh, whatever you want to do, we'll do, because we want the next Survivor. And he went through the whole story. You understand, there's 5 people, they're all chained together at the feet, and it's unbelievable. It's so much fun, because the tension builds, and everyone's trying to compete with each other. And at the end of each show, someone has to leave, and they unlock the chain and they go away. We're like, this is great, go for it, right? And because he was a big producer, you couldn't just say, I want one episode of it. You had to say, I'll take all 13 or 22, I forget what it was, for the year. And if it works, then we'll do another and another and another. And the first episode came in, and we were like, oh God, this is horrible, right? And it was, because how do you take a shower, 5 people chained together going into the shower? It was sort of funny at first, and you're like, oh, this is horrible. And then lying in bed, they were all chained together, we're like, oh, wow, this is horrible. And then, and we actually were kind of like, so what do we do? Do we tell them to take the chains off? But the show's called Chains of Love. And so there's an example of someone doing an amazing pitch with an amazing history, played on that. We were, we were enthralled by the opportunity, and it was a disaster. We had another one like that with the guys who do the WWE, similar kind of thing. But for every one of those risks that you take, because this is all just about risks, it's all about taking chances. For every one of those chances you take, hopefully you learn something from the chance you took. And you'll then have 2 successes off the learnings, and then you'll get better at it and get better at it. And so it's all about taking risks. Whether you are starting out and trying something, it's about taking a risk throughout your career, whatever it is. It's not getting too comfortable in what you do. It's actually about then saying, well, how can I do a little bit more? This is something I'm interested in. Let me take that chance. Not be afraid to continue to widen and evolve yourself. While still staying passionate about what you're doing, but always take risks. Always take these chances and then learn from them, because they will fail for sure. That's the nature of risk taking.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, did you guys meet here, or did you already know each other?
We just met.
Yeah. Although interestingly, there are some connections between all 3 of us that we weren't aware of until this morning. But yeah, we just met this
Yeah,
morning.
the joys of Hollywood. We are
Yes.
actually all connected by
Yeah.
one person,
Yes.
which is very funny.
Yes.
But it's fun. I mean, that's typical. A big piece, you talk about pitching something, honestly, and that's what makes, I guess it's what makes it's something that happens in every business, but you have to network. It's really important to get to know the people in your industry, because sometimes you never know where somebody is going to find an opportunity, or where you'll find the right opportunity for someone else. And for example, the mutual friend that we have is somebody that I did comedy with for a few years, and we stayed in touch and we stayed friends, and an opportunity came up and I was like, oh my God, you know who would be great for that? Matt. And I give him a call, and it turned out to be a good gig for him. It's, you never know. And then down the roads, maybe, it's just, that's how it works. It's so much of it is relationships. And by the way, having those relationships, it's not about schmoozing. I really pride myself. I don't do a lot of lunches. I don't do a lot of dinners. I have a family, but I really force myself to make sure I'm at conferences and maybe get drinks with somebody. But here's the key thing. I cannot believe how wildly pulled together I am right now. I'm so sorry. But my point is that when you're with people, listen to them. Focus on who they are and hear them. Don't be one of those people that's always looking over the shoulder to see who the more important person in the room is. Who's thinking, like, that matters to people. When people hear from me, or I ask if somebody wants to go to dinner or for drinks, I get a lot of yeses, because they know when I go to dinner with them, I'm present and I'm talking to them. I'm actually consider them somebody that I would want to spend time with. And those relationships pay off. That's how I got my foot back in the business. And for somebody who left the industry for a while to have 3 kids, and, you know, I was not at a company for a long time. And what got me back in is my relationships with all those other, when you go into start working in entertainment, make friends with your fellow assistants. Get to know them, stay in touch with them. Several of the people that I was really close with coming up in the ranks run networks now. Those are the people who are going to take your pitch and listen to your show and take care of you. And it's just, relationships are really important, but they're not important unless they're real.
I would like to add to that, and I agree
Yes,
that
and?
a genuine relationship with people is going to help you. Another thing that is tremendously important, and this I would imagine goes in across whatever job it is you decide to do, is to show a willingness, to work very hard. As a young person, it's really, really important for somebody who's been there for a long time to have faith that the person that they have just hired is going to be committed to doing the job that they've been hired to do. And also, and I would say equally important, is to acknowledge the things that you don't know. Because to try to, when I hire somebody to work on, for example, to work on Big Brother, for them to come in and be asked to do something, to be assigned to do something, not know how to do it, and then walk away saying, oh shit, I don't know how to do that, I'm just gonna have to fake it for a while. Well, then if they're faking it and not asking questions about how to do the thing, then all you're doing is spinning your wheels and wasting time. I would much, much rather, in fact, I admire the person who comes in relatively green, meaning inexperienced, and is willing to say, I don't know how to do that. I much prefer to have somebody come in who's willing to work hard and also willing to learn, because that's somebody who shows me that they're committed to doing the job and not just sort of faking their way through it and hoping that what they're doing is the right thing, because that's just a waste of time. So be open to obviously working hard, but also open to knowing the things that you don't know and acknowledging it, because if you acknowledge it, say, hey, I really want to do this thing you've asked me to do, I want to make sure I do it correctly, can you tell me exactly how it is that you want that done? That's going to be you're going to make a much better impression on somebody than going away, faking it for a while, coming back and not having done the thing that you were supposed to do correctly.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually have a sign in my office that says, be so good they can't ignore you. You guys might not know who Steve Martin is, but he was one of my heroes, and he's a comedian. And it's on a sign, it's on my desk, and it's a reminder that no matter what you do, put 110% into it. I always say, and I'm not proud of this, but I don't get to know an assistant or an intern's name until they've been there for like 6 months, because I wait to see if they're going to make an impression on me. Otherwise, it's just a revolving door. We have interns, young people are coming in and out. These jobs are so highly sought after. Working for either of these guys is a massive opportunity. Working at Henson is a massive opportunity. And there are so many people lining up who have no brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins. We love to take people who are like, I don't have anyone in the industry that I can turn to, but I'm a huge Henson fan. Great, you got me, I'm hooked. What else can you tell me? Like, tell me how organized you are, tell me how much you want it. And then when you show up at my office, show me you want it. We've had interns come through the office, I couldn't even begin to tell you what their names were or who they were, made no impression whatsoever. And then we have interns, we have this guy, oh my God, I love him so much. Within 2 days, I knew his name, he was always in front of me. Hi Sarah, how you doing? What's going on? Like, he didn't have to offer to do any work for me, but he was like, good morning, how are you? Made a point of being in touch. Is there anything you need? Is there something I can do to help? And it turns out this guy was no one in the business. He was a busboy at Bossa Nova. I don't know how he ended up coming in, but he's the most spectacular intern we've ever had, and he goes above and beyond. And because he comes into my office, it's like, what can I do? What are you looking for? I started bringing him into writers' meetings. So now he takes notes for me. He went from an unpaid intern, he takes notes on all of our writer meetings. We just got a show greenlit at Food Network. I'm like, what about Ruben as our PA? because he's so hardworking. He has no clue what he's doing. He doesn't have anyone in his family who knows what who knows entertainment or could get him in the door. But be that person who does too much. Be that person who's present. It is so important, and it makes such a big impression on the people you're working under. And we're desperate to delegate. We would love to be able to put certain responsibilities in the hands of somebody else and be like, I'm really going to need you to take this script, tell me how many puppets are there in this script, how many backgrounds, what are the, like, be able to give someone thoughtful work. But the only way we feel comfortable doing that is seeing that somebody is really detail oriented and focused and wants it. So there's really nothing more important than just giving 110%, because you will stand out.
Go ahead.
Is there anything that someone can do that's like get out of here, like you're so bad or something like that? You know what I mean? Like something that's like a total like, no.
Why you'd be fired, you mean?
Yeah.
So, meaning get a restraining order against the person? Someone comes into your office too often.
Go ahead. If
Someone who gets fired. For me, it's because, I manage a bunch of different types of people, right? And they're all in different kinds of departments. And so the way I sort of look at it is, if the other managers aren't managing their team well, then that is an opportunity to ask that person to perform better or get a different person in there. Sort of the key of a manager is really understanding what every person's role is. Like, so if you're a coach on a basketball team, sports is usually the metaphor people use in this, or analogy people use in this, which is a coach's job is to identify what each player's best thing they can contribute to the overall performance. And the coach's job is to make sure that the player understands what that is. And then the player needs to be able to do just that, and not try to do something else because it doesn't fit into how the team needs to operate. And so for me, those are the types of things I've come across where everybody has a different level of passion. Everyone has a different level of commitment in terms of what they want to do or how they approach something. Everybody has a different style. Some people will work endless hours, and some people will work literally just 9 to 6, right? And there's nothing wrong with someone who works 9 to 6. There's nothing wrong with someone who works endless hours. The key is that during that period, are they doing the work that they need to do? Are they doing that job well, or are they just sort of phoning it in? And if they're just phoning it in, then there's a lot of other people that would like that position. So I think the only thing I can get across is you've said it this way too, is that it's about passion. Whatever it is that you're doing is to find that interesting and find something about it to be interesting. Because it may not be perfect, it may not be exactly what you want to do. You may get one thing that's cool and 10 other tasks for that week that kind of suck, right? But you gotta find those interesting as well and be passionate about it. But it also requires that your boss knows how to manage you. Because if your boss doesn't know how to do that, then it's really hard for someone to perform really well and learn. I've been fortunate, there's a term some people use to say they're rabbi, right? I've been fortunate to have 4 great mentors starting after my parents, so 6 great mentors. Which was the first job I had, the next job I had, the next job I had, the next job I had, and that was by the time I was 30. And I've stayed in contact with all of those people, and they were great teachers, ultimately great teachers. So if I'm looking for a job and I'm just starting out, one is I'd like to get the job, 2, I want to find something interesting. But are they a good teacher, right? Do they have the ability to be a good mentor to me? And if they do, that is icing on the cake, and then take advantage of that.
I would also like to add that, first of all, you shouldn't be going into a job and saying, I wonder what are the things that are getting me fired. Probably not the best approach. But I will also tell you that from my perspective, for example, when you get hired by somebody, they're putting an investment in you. They've decided, okay, this is somebody who I believe is going to be able to do this job capably and ideally more than capably. They're going to really impress me. And so I don't want to fire somebody. I want to try, give that person an opportunity to really learn the job and grow with the job. Because I'll give you an example. There are various levels of producers that I hire to do the show Big Brother. Big Brother's not an easy show to do. For various reasons, I won't get into all of the details, but it's a really intense job. And some people are built for it, and some people just aren't built for it. But when I hire somebody at the beginning of a season, I want that person to work out. I'm not looking for reasons to get rid of somebody. So I'm going to give that person an opportunity. If it's not working out, I hear from the team leaders from below that sort of report to me. Let's say you're on the Wednesday show, and the leader of the Wednesday shows comes and says, "What's your name?" Katz comes and says, "Listen, Katz is really struggling. She's not up to speed on this thing." I'll talk to the leader of that team and say, "Okay, well, what are the areas that Katz is struggling on, and how can we focus on those areas so that she gets better in them?" And so, the point being, people who hire you are not looking for reasons to fire you. They're looking for reasons to make you better at what you do. So, I like to, there are fireable things. I mean, you don't want to, there are illegal things that you could do that are going to get you fired regardless of how badly I want you to do well in your job. But when it comes to job performance itself, you're going to get chances. You're going to be told that you're not up to speed, or you're not at the place where you should be at this point, which will hopefully light a fire under your butt to get going. The point being, when you get hired, the people are making an investment in you, and they're relying on you because if I have to fire you, all that means is I got to go find somebody else who's going to do that job. And now the Big Brother season has started, so they're going to be coming in late, and it's a nightmare for me to have somebody who just isn't working out. Now, does it happen? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's unavoidable. It's just not the right show for somebody. But we really, really try to make that person work in that position because, like I said, we're making an investment in you. We want you to be a productive member of the team.
The only thing that I would add to that is there's something almost worse than being fired, and that's that you just never, ever move. Nothing ever happens to you. You're somewhere and you are not moving up the ladder, and other people are moving up the ladder. And that can be for a variety of reasons too, and that is, it's not firing, but it is a clear sign that your career at that place is over. The best example that I can give is I won't say where or when, but there was somebody who was interested in a writer's position, a writing assistant job, and it would have been a step up for her. And number one, she had really inappropriate Facebook and Instagram photos. Really inappropriate, like in garters and like fetishy weird stuff. And everybody's
what's her name?
It rhymes with, and that it believe it or not, you're a representative of the company when you work there. It doesn't mean, for me, there is a tough line. Like I said, I'm also a writer. I did a lot of style writing. I wrote for Fashion Police. I wrote for the Today Show. Like, I've done a lot of writing. I function as a blogger in and of myself, as an author and a blogger and a writer, and so I have my own thing that I do that's my own personal thing, and so I've always, for years, I was very comfortable just sort of posting whatever I want. But once I went internally, I really started thinking very hard about what I post, what my pictures are, the comments that I make, not because it's my job to be exactly who Henson wants me to be, but just to be respectful of their brand and to not, I've taken a position with them. I'm in a leadership role. It is not right for me for such a public brand to be online saying certain things or doing certain things. It's just, that's too controversial. The other thing is that this person was like making out with their boyfriend on the studio lot. Like, again, not the place. you know, all fine, but not the place. There are things like, I had another person who's horrible attitude. Everything is, nobody wants that. I don't need that. Like the first thing in my morning, like my assistant right now, he's really positive. I walk in the door, I'm like, good morning, Josh. He's like, I'm like, how you doing? He's like, so good. I'm like, great. That, like, I feed off of that, but that feels really good to me. And I also know that if something actually is wrong, he can tell me. It's not just every day. The assistant before him was, everything was a problem. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. You guys, you're all, I don't need it. I don't need to solve my assistant's problems. I don't mind it if they come to me with questions, but I'm not there to be a therapist, and I'm not there to make their day brighter. Everybody's got a job to do. We're all working together. Like, please bring a positive attitude, and in return, I will be positive, and I will treat you with respect. And it's very much a give and take.
Go ahead.
This is a question for all three of you. What is something you wish you had known before entering the industry?
I'll tell you one thing. So I work. Do you know what the idea of a freelance person is?
Yes. Yeah.
Freelance person, basically. So I'm a freelance producer, which basically means I'm hired for a job. I'm hired to do Big Brother. So I'm working and I'm getting paid, and all of that is great when Big Brother is happening. But when Big Brother isn't happening, that means I've got to go find another thing to go work on. Now, I've been very fortunate that I have been able to get jobs. You finish one thing, you got to go find your next thing, and I've been fortunate for the most part. But I will say that the freelance lifestyle is a difficult one, especially when you get older and you've got kids and you've got more responsibilities and all that kind of thing. I wish I had known more about that until my career path kind of went in that direction, and that's just who I became. Again, I've been very fortunate because I have been able to get hired a lot, but it is, there's a little bit of stress that goes on that would be nice to not have to live with when a show's coming to an end and you don't know what that next thing is. So yes, that is something that I wish I would have been more aware of when I was younger.
Sorry,
That's
cost,
okay.
it ended, yes.
Yeah.
It ended, the cost.
I just heard the bell.
Oh. What?
That's okay.
Class is over.
That's good. No, it's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
That's
guys.
no problem. Thanks, everyone.